Good evening, Jacqueline. Cool. So today we're gonna see what we get done. The idea is to read the play together today, and then I'm gonna speak about the play a little bit, and then I'll talk about the extra credit assignments. So that's the plan for today. So the extra credit assignment related to this play. And then next week, we're just going to dive into, we're going to spend next week just preparing for the final exam. So we will, we have the 2 poems already up on the, I think I put them up on the site. If not, I'll take a look before class and make sure that you have the 2 poems that we're going to be. Okay. The 2 poems, that was loud. The 2 poems that we'll read, and then so we'll study the poems and then we'll do a little bit of practice next week. But so let me just get this together. So I wanted to get volunteers. So the way it'll work is I'll put the play on the screen and then we'll read it together. So I just need volunteers now to read, and you could, you know, you don't have to stick to your gender. You could read, you know, if a guy wants to read Cassandra, please welcome. And if you know, woman wants to read any of the male roles. And this actually, what's interesting is that in Shakespeare's day, okay, that's fine. In Shakespeare's day, it was considered dishonorable for a woman to be an actress, you know. And so all the roles were played by men. So in the original plays, all the female characters were played by men, because, you know, dressed up as women, because it was dishonorable for a woman to be on the stage. And sorry, the crazy
Hello,
thing.
Professor.
Hey, how are you, Magdalene?
Sorry.
So so let's see how we can do this. So I would need, I guess, volunteers. So I could split the role of Ruby to 2 people, and then let's see, who do we have? Ophelia, we have the Queen, we have the King, we have Hamlet, and we have the Ghost. All right. So any volunteers to read Ruby?
Are you presenting, Professor? Because I'm
Yeah.
commuting. I'm willing to be a Ruby.
A Ruby? Okay. So I can have Mabel be 1. Okay. And I will share the screen so everyone can see it. A second Ruby. All right, let's, oh wait, let me know she got in. All right, so maybe people are not feeling Ruby, but anybody feeling Ophelia?
Are you gonna split it in 2, Ophelia?
No, Ophelia would just be 1 because she's only in 1 scene.
I know she's short. I know.
Yeah.
I can help with Ophelia.
Okay.
I could be a Ruby too.
All right, so we got Erica. All right, what about the Queen, Queen Gertrude? I could do it like this. Is anybody interested in one of, oh, you can't hear me? Is anybody interested in one of the roles? In the Queen, the King, Hamlet, or the Ghost? The King, the Queen, Hamlet, or the Ghost? Anyone else able to read and follow along? Help us out.
Oh, me, Professor. Gonna be the Queen.
Gonna be the Queen, okay.
Yes. I'm gonna put my camera in a few seconds. I'm just getting home.
Okay, that's fine. What about the King, Hamlet, and the Ghost? I could do the Ghost. Okay, Cesar will do the Ghost. All right, and let me just check the chat to see if anybody else is volunteering in the chat. I didn't see it. Okay, Ninoshka's gonna do Hamlet. Okay, I got Ninochka's Hamlet. And let's see, who do we have left? We just have the king. Any other volunteers to do the king? I could do the king too. Okay, so Sessa is willing to do two of them. Does someone else want to do it? If not, Sessa will do two. Okay, all right, I guess Sessa will do two of them. Okay, let me share my screen and yeah, just read it. You know, don't, if you want to give it some life, give it life. Don't feel like you have to. You know, unless somebody here, you know, I think was it no, my previous class I've taught, there was a young woman who played Ophelia in Shakespeare in like high school, and so she was excited to be able to read for it again. Let's see, let me go. I think it's here. I thought I had it all open and ready. What's it at? Here, here. No, it's over here. I don't know. I spent all this time. Oh, there it is. Okay. Getting it ready, and then I can't find it with all my tabs that I have open. Okay. So I'm going to make this small. All right. So hopefully everybody can see it. Let me see if I can make it just a little bigger. Yeah. Okay. Good. That's like the biggest I can make it. All right. Great. So when we just get to your part, just begin reading. So if we're, as with most readings, this is how it's done. So it says Ruby of Elsinore, a one-act play by Bruce Kane. The setting is Ruby's House of Beauty in Elsinore, Denmark. The characters are Ruby, a hairdresser, late 30s, lots of hair, lots of attitude. Ophelia, Hamlet's sometime girlfriend, young and naive. Gertrude, Hamlet's mother, haughty, self-involved. Claudius, Hamlet's lusty but suspicious stepfather. And that's Claudius, that's I was saying the king. And Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark. He's indecisive, and I see the ghost is on this line here. Ghost, angry, and bloodthirsty. So I'm going to read some of the stage directions, and then you all can begin reading the plays. So at Rise, Ophelia fusses with her hair, while Ruby tries to style it.
How do I know when I go? Because it's 1 and 2.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's a, say it again, who was talking?
Erica.
Oh, Erica. Okay, so I'll let you know when you go. You can, yes. So you're gonna yes, I'll let you know when to go, when to switch to the next Ruby. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay. So all right. So then Mabel, Mabel begins, and then so we have Mabel and Johanny right now.
Okay. Stop playing with your hair, girl. That's my job.
Oh, Ruby, you have to make me especially beautiful.
Honey, this is a comb, not a magic wand.
I mean it. I have to look really good tonight.
What's the big occasion?
I'm going to be a princess.
Trust me, honey. You've been a princess for a long time.
No, I mean a real princess with the tiara and everything.
Who died?
Nobody died.
I thought with you people, every time somebody dies, you all move up one.
I'm going to marry a prince.
A prince? You're
That's
gonna
right.
marry a prince?
That's right. I'm going to be a Princess Ophelia.
He told you he was a prince?
He is a prince.
I'd be careful if I were you, child. A lot of frogs walking around these days claiming to be princes.
This is no frog.
I'd run a background check. At least Google him. Every guy nowadays with a pair of tights and a sword says he's a prince.
Ruby, I'm going to marry a prince. I'm going to marry Prince Hamlet.
Hold on here. You're gonna marry the Prince of Darkness?
Say those things about him. Didn't say those things about him.
Honey, that man could depress a laughing hyena.
He's got a lot on his mind.
He's a friggin' prince. He doesn't do jack. What the hell he could have on his mind?
It's his father.
Unless they went to a lot of expense to bury the wrong guy, your boyfriend's father is dead.
That's the problem.
What are you telling me? The old guy's not dead?
Oh no, he's dead, all right.
Then what's the friggin' problem?
Hamlet thinks,
Digits.
What? He thinks what?
I really shouldn't say anything.
Fine with me, child. Whatever it is. I wouldn't pay much attention. If you ask me, all these royals are a couple of raisins short of a dancing. Danish, I'm sorry. It's what happens when cousins marry cousins.
Hamlet doesn't think his father died of natural causes.
How, girl? This is Elsinore. Nobody dies of natural causes.
You have to promise not to tell a soul.
My lips are sealed.
Well, Hamlet thinks that his stepfather,
You mean the new king?
right, Claudius. Hamlet thinks he knew the king had something to do with his father. Well, you know,
He thinks King Claudius croaked his old man.
something like that.
That'd be my guess.
You think the king could do something so gross?
Like I said, honey, this is Denmark. There's always something rotten going on somewhere. And you can quote me on that. So tell me, did the Prince of Indecision figure this out all by his lonesome?
Not exactly.
Just how exactly?
You have to promise not to whisper a word of this to anyone.
You know what I always say, child. What happens at Ruby's stays at Ruby's.
His father told him.
His father is dead.
That's why you can't tell anyone.
Why would I want to?
I know it's hard to believe.
Oh no, hard to believe. Hamlet's dead father told him that Claudius bumped him off.
That's it in a nutshell.
I'd say nutshell was an excellent choice of word. And you're going to marry this guy?
When he asked me,
Hold on just a cotton picking minute here. He hasn't asked you to marry him?
not in so many words.
Well, if he does, it'll be in so many words. You won't understand what the hell he's talking about. How well do you know Prince Hamlet?
Well, let's just say, well enough.
Take it from someone who's been there, honey. Sometimes well enough ain't good enough.
I know he loves me.
He told you that.
Well,
Not in so many words. For the life of me, I'll never understand why women let men off the hook when it comes to saying I love you.
because I know he does.
At your age, you don't know Jack, especially when it comes to men.
I know how he feels from the way he looks at me.
Don't confuse myopia with interest.
He loves me and I am going to marry him.
Okay, it's your life. I'd just be careful if I was you, child. The prince just never seems the marrying kind, if you know what I mean.
No, I don't know what you mean.
You're always hanging around with those two guys, you know, Rosenberg, Kildenkrantz.
Rosencrantz and Guildensburg.
Whatever. They're both a little light in leotards, if you ask me.
They were all friends in college, and there's nothing wrong with that. Wrong with Hamlet.
I've never seen him with any girls. No offense, honey. But he always seemed a real mama's boy to me.
Hamlet loves his mother.
So did Oedipus.
Well, he must have been a very good son, this Oedipus.
And for a while, not a bad husband.
Hamlet is just not too happy with his mother these days.
What's his problem?
He thinks she married his uncle too soon after his father's death.
Oh, really? He thinks the next day was too soon?
Don't make jokes, Ruby.
Who's making jokes? They used the flowers from the funeral to cater the wedding.
Hamlet thinks that there may have been something going on between Claudius and Gertrude even before.
He thinks how everybody in Elsinore knew Gertrude was steaming up the sheets with Claudius.
Well, I didn't know that.
Are you blind, Charles? Even at the funeral, Claudius had his hand firmly planted on her royal ass. Have you thought of suggesting to the prince that maybe he seek a little professional help? I mean, I see dead people. Give me a freaking break here.
Ruby, what do you think I should do?
What does your father say?
Neither a borrower nor a lender be.
Why does your old man think you're going into business with Prince Hamlet?
No, that's just the way my father talks. To thine own self be true, and it follows as the night, the day, yada, yada, yada.
He holds up a mirror in front of Ophelia.
Oh, Ruby, you're a dream.
We are all such stuff as dreams are made on, and you can quote me on that.
Ruby, if Hamlet doesn't ask me to marry him, I swear I'll kill myself.
Now, child, you mustn't talk that way. You listen to Ruby. Men are like ferry boats. If you miss one, there'll be another one along in an hour. Now run along.
Ophelia gives Ruby a hug and runs off.
Wish me luck.
Luck? You're gonna need it. Next, Your Majesty.
All right, let's pause for a minute. Okay. Thank you. Off to a good start. I just want to talk about a couple of things, that are inside of the scene. So, there's as you can tell, they're talking about different plot points from Hamlet. Remember in the play Hamlet, when we talked about the synopsis of it, Ophelia wants to marry Hamlet, but then Hamlet tells her to go be a nun, go to the nunnery if you think you're going to marry me. But later in the story, when she kills herself, he feels all sad about it. So that's one plot point. They're talking about the whole idea of the king killing, the Claudius killing the previous king. So there's another plot point that they're bringing in there. But up until this point, they also make references to other Shakespeare plays, all those phrases that are in there, to thy own self be true, as the day goes the night, never a borrower, a lender be. All those are lines from Hamlet and from other Shakespeare plays that they're playing with, that the playwright is playing with and using it in terms of the dialogue. Also, that whole thing about Oedipus. Did we talk about Oedipus in the class? That was no. So Oedipus is a story of what it's.
I googled it.
Say it again. You googled it.
I googled it, yeah, to see what it was. I was like, I want to know what it is.
So, what was it?
It was someone who killed his father to marry his mom.
Yeah. So Oedipus was the story of Oedipus was when he was a baby. There was a soothsayer said that baby was going to kill the father and marry the mother, right?
You actually mentioned something like that when we read The Judge's
You
Wife.
did.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember
The
you
Judge's
mentioned that.
Wife, a short part of it. Yes.
Right. So that was it. Yeah, I was talking about fate, and that was his fate. And so then they tried to put the baby away, but then he ended up happening. So in here they use it as a joke. Like she says, "Oh, he was a mama's boy," and so was Oedipus. That means he's a good son, and then she says he was also a good husband at one point too. So Ruby's also as you're getting a sense of the character, she's cracking jokes, she's making fun of it. She also is can you see the difference between how she talks and how Ophelia talks? The style of language, right? Who does Ruby sound like?
A salonera,
Like a what?
the lady in the salon.
Like a salon lady, right? A salonera, you said, right? Okay, a lady in the salon. Yeah, she's gossipy. She's also using language that's more contemporary as opposed to the way that Ophelia is speaking. All right, so I just wanted to point those things out. I'm going to share the screen and we can continue. And so then, who's next? Magdalene is next, and Mabel, you continue as Ruby. Let's share my screen. We'll continue. Great job, Johanny and Mabel so far. Okay, so you just said Your Majesty, and then we can begin with Gertrude saying, Rosie, how are you?
Oh, I'm next, right?
Yes.
Okay, what?
No, we're on page 5, right here on page 5.
Oh, we here. Oh, I started here, Rosie.
Yeah.
Okay. Rosie, how are you?
Ruby,
What?
Ruby, my name is Ruby Highness, not Rosie.
Are you contradicting your queen?
No, ma'am. I was merely pointing out.
One does not point out to their queen.
Yes, Your Highness. Well,
Gertrude,
what'll it be today? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
okay. Gertrude sits in the chair and Ruby drapes the smock over her.
Well, what'll it be today?
All right, just a touch up.
Want me to do something with those roots?
I'm the queen. I don't have roots. I have transitions.
Whatever you say.
She begins working on Gertrude.
So how are you, Majesty? I haven't seen you in here since just before your wedding. I suppose congrats are in order,
Thank you, Rita.
as well as condolences.
Condolences? What are you talking about?
Condolences on the death of your husband.
Cloud is not dead. He's alive, very much alive. In fact, we only just had.
I meant your first husband, Highness, the late king, the one before this one.
Oh, yes, the lady king. Yes, of course. He's dead and buried.
Although still active from what I hear.
What are you talking about, Ruthie?
Nothing, Your Grace. So everything is satisfactory with you and the new king.
Everything is very satisfactory, Rhonda.
Happy to hear it.
Things couldn't be more satisfactory.
That's good.
As a matter of fact, I can't remember when I have been so satisfied and on such a regular basis.
Well, you go, Highness.
Are you married, Rhoda?
Ruby.
Who's Ruby?
Not important, Majesty. And to answer your question, I was married once.
Was he a loving man?
That's what every woman I caught him with said.
My first husband was not a loving man. I can hear. I can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am.
It's okay. Okay, well, we are now.
Yes.
Okay, I'm in here. Okay. In fact, my late husband was a cold man, a very cold man.
Couldn't be much colder than he is right now.
Perhaps there are women who prefer a man who pays them no attention, leaves them completely alone, a man who never, how should put it, a man who never.
Shows them the respect and tenderness they deserve.
Her voice drops and becomes heavy. You're here.
That's right. Okay. Her breathing, okay. Tenderness, I don't know how to say that.
Tremendous.
Shrimpness.
Mhm.
I'm talking about a man who never sleeps. Then the hard one sweeps out the shiny thread through, okay, I'm sorry, threads the olive needle, lays a little pipe now and then.
I'm sorry. Of course, Majesty. What could I be thinking?
Indeed, then along came Claudius.
Ruby does a little dance.
Slow walking Claudius, slow talking Claudius.
Ruby straightens up.
You're speaking, of course, of the new king, your present husband, your late husband's brother, your son's new.
Annoyed. Yes, yes, yes. Claudius is different than his brother.
For one thing, he's alive.
Claudius is warm.
Warm is a good thing in a man.
He's considerate
A rare trait these days.
and loving, very, 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 very loving.
There's certainly a new glow in the royal cheeks.
I can tell you this because you are a woman, Rachel. You are a woman.
110%.
With someone in your profession, one can't always be sure.
Oh, you can be sure your homophobicness.
When I am with him, all I want to do is, how can I say it? All I want to do is,
Enjoy his company, rest in his arms, bask in his adulation.
Breathing heavily again.
Scavity, the tone of love. Clean the carpet, paddle the park, ride the pony, slurp the.
I get the picture, your humpness.
My son doesn't understand that.
He's young, he'll learn.
Do you really think so?
Give him time.
Perhaps you are right.
Time heals all wounds.
How quaint is that what they call peasant wisdom?
I suppose.
Maybe if he had someone in his life, he would understand my need to. How should I say it?
I think that lawn's already been mowed, your home horniness.
Are you coming to the play? Are you coming to the play tonight?
What plate is that, your majesty?
Hamlet has commissioned a play to be performed in the castle tonight. It is called The Music Trap. You must come.
Thank you. But plays really ain't my thing. I like something with a little action. Something I can get down with. Something, how should I put it? Something funky.
One does not turn down an invitation from her queen just because the subject doesn't rise or sink to the required level of funkness.
Yes, your superciliousness.
I will leave 2 tickets for you at we'll call she
She exits.
okay.
Okay, send in the next sucker.
All right, so hold on a second. Great, thank you. We'll stop for a quick moment, then we'll read the rest of it. So we bring in the character of Gertrude, right? This is the queen, and he portrays her as somebody who's very sexual. So all those, I don't know if you knew all those terms, the ride the pony and lay the pipe and all that stuff are all sexual terms about, intercourse and sex. And so Gertrude, clearly there, he makes it, I mean, she's not like that way in Shakespeare's play, and I could tell you that because I know, but he gives her like a reason for going along with this murder, and that her old husband, her previous husband, was cold. And as Ruby said, he can't be colder than he is now because he's dead. But she is talking about how her life has changed because her sex life has changed because she has a new her new husband is very passionate. And then the whole interaction with Ruby, she's haughty. Haughty means like conceited, like high, like she looks down on Ruby a lot, and she doesn't even remember her name, or she calls her Ruthie and Rhoda and Rhonda and Rachel and every letter with an
Every
R,
R.
right? And then when then she says, I can tell you this because you're a woman. She goes, like, wait, you are a woman, right? And Ruby says, yes, 110%. She goes, well, in your profession you can never tell because there's and then she calls her your homophobicness after that because she there's a stereotype, right, of gay men being hairdressers. So she was checking in with Ruby, making sure she wasn't a man and a trans person. So okay, cool. Let's continue reading, and we'll switch to Ruby's now. So Erica, you will read the next one, and I guess we have Caesar reading the King. Okay, so we'll begin. We'll begin here. With Ruby calling out. Okay, send in the next sucker. Let's begin here.
Okay, send it in a sucker.
Ruby, Ruby, Ruby.
King, king, king.
Ruby, Ruby, Ruby.
King, king, king.
You're a sight for sore eyes, Ruby.
You're looking very regal yourself.
I am feeling very regal.
I haven't seen you since your coronation.
Has it been that long, Ruby?
At least, is it true what they say, Highness?
What's that, Ruby?
That is good to be the king.
It doesn't suck. I can tell you that the power, the wealth, the respect, but mostly the power. God, I love the power. People stand when you walk into a room. They don't sit until you sit. They do what you tell them to do. They laugh at all your jokes. Ruby, right now, back in the castle, there are actually people lining up to kiss my ring.
So that's what all the bowing is about.
And the woman, Ruby, I can't turn around without some beautiful woman offering me. Well, what beautiful woman have to offer? You get the picture.
In a frame.
But of course, I am faithful to my queen, to the queen.
Of course.
Completely faithful.
Completely.
Totally and completely faithful.
Totally and completely faithful.
100% without a...
What's her name?
Annabelle. She's a lady in waiting.
Obviously, she ain't waiting no more.
Ruby, Ruby, Ruby.
King, king, king.
I may be the king, Ruby,
Here it comes.
but I am still a man.
If you weren't a man, you wouldn't be the king.
Exactly.
You be the queen.
You won't say anything about the
Be mime shouting her zipping her lips.
I knew I could count on you, Ruby.
Your usual trim, Majesty?
Please.
He sits in the chair, she drapes a smock over him and begins to trim.
My stepson is putting on some I don't know how to pronounce that.
That's right, cockamamie.
Cockamamie played tonight, and his mother insists that I go.
Then I'll see you there.
You're going?
Let's say the queen extended me an invitation I couldn't refuse.
Then there's no getting out of it for either of us. Do you have any children, Ruby?
None that I know of.
What?
It's a joke.
Of course, a joke. No one tells me jokes anymore.
That's too bad.
They are afraid to be funnier than the king.
Heavy lies the head that wears the crown.
Very perceptive, Ruby. Who said that?
I just did.
Oh, my stepson hates me, Ruby?
He's just a little confused.
Confused? He's a fruitcake, but he still hates me for marrying his mother.
Right.
Among other things.
What's that?
It's not easy for a child when one parent dies and the other remarries the next day.
Perhaps we did rush things a tad, but it is a cruel world out there for a woman by herself without a man to protect her.
I suppose only thing I know is that the man who said he was going to protect me protected me right out of the life savings.
I couldn't leave my brother's widow alone,
That's what I hear.
and now her son wants to see me dead.
Really? Dead? Hamlet?
Those are the rumors. Have you heard anything, Ruby? I'm sure people tell you things.
Me? No, I haven't heard a thing. Not a thing.
Here's my private number.
Gives her his card.
If you do hear anything, would you give me a call? Would you have the undying gratitude of a grateful king? Oh, you will have the undying gratitude of a grateful king.
Taking Claudius' card.
If I hear anything,
She takes off the smock.
Thank you, Ruby.
He starts to leave.
Oh, Ruby,
yes, Your Majesty.
bring toothpicks.
Excuse me?
Bring toothpicks for the play to prop your eyes open. I hear Hamlet directed it. It's got to be a real yarn. Maybe if you acted it this way, perhaps. If you played it that way, what if you entered from the right? Or you could always come in from the left. On the other hand,
He exits. Hamlet enters. His hair is long and unkempt. So now we got Ninoshka, and Erica continues.
Yes, I'm here. To be or
Well, looks what the cat dragged in.
Hamlet drops into Ruby's chair and slumps.
Sit up straight.
why, Ruby? Why sit up straight? Why not sit slumped forward or sit with one leg thrown over the arm? Perhaps with both.
She throws a smock over him.
Knock it off and just sit up straight. You can't go to your own play tonight looking like this.
What difference does it make, Ruby? Whether I look like this or I look like that, just pull the whole thing back into a ponytail.
Ponytail? Where have you been? Man, ponytails are so yesterday.
Yesterday, today, tomorrow.
You need something that says young, hip, now.
How about big? Thick sideburns down to here?
I don't think so. You're a prince, not the king.
She does an Elvis move.
What difference does it make what my hair color looks like? A road, peasant, slave, am I?
That may be, but your hair says Vogue and peasant Slav. You're a prince. You should look like one. Besides, there's nothing like a new do. So lift the clouds of doom. Raise your spirits, boost your confidence.
And what do you suggest, Ruby? What could ever lift the clouds of doom that hover over my troubled brow?
Bangs.
Bangs?
Bangs.
Certainly you jest.
Bangs are the rage in England. From what I hear, Prince Valiant is beasting off with a stick.
Really? With a stick? To have bangs or not to have bangs? That is the question.
You're gonna start with that again, are you?
Whether it's nobler to wear one hairs in a ponytail or two.
You keep that up and I'm gonna shave you bald.
Bangs it is.
So tell me about this play of yours.
Actually, it's a ploy.
A ploy?
To catch the consent of the king.
The ploy?
No, the play.
But the ploy is the thing to catch the conscience of the king.
No, that's the play.
What's the play?
The mousetrap.
The mousetrap.
Yes,
What's the mousetrap have to do with this?
it's the play.
The mousetrap is the play.
Yes,
Then what's the ploy?
the play.
The ploy is the play.
Precisely. And the play is the mousetrap.
So what you're saying is that the play is a ploy and the ploy is a play and the play is the mousetrap?
Yes. And they play within a play.
Excuse me.
The mousetrap.
What about the mousetrap?
It's a play with a play.
The mousetrap is a play within a play.
That's what makes it a ploy.
Let's see if I have this straight. The play is a ploy and the ploy is a play and the play is a play within a play and it's the play within the play that makes the play a ploy.
But you mustn't repeat that to anyone.
I don't think I could even if I wanted to. Does your girlfriend know about any of this?
What? Girlfriend? I don't have a girlfriend.
Ophelia?
Ophelia? Is she still telling everyone she's my girlfriend?
She thinks you're gonna pop her the question.
What question?
Well, if it ain't to be or not to be, I can tell you that.
She thinks I'm going to ask her to marry me.
That's what she thinks.
Where did she get the idea I wanted to marry her?
Apparently from you.
I've got enough on my plate. My father's dead, my uncle is the king, and my mother is...
Let's not go there, okay?
The point is, I don't need some girl moaning after me all the time. She should get to her a nunnery.
What that girl is looking for, she ain't gonna find in no nunnery.
She ain't going to find it with me either.
A bit of advice, if you don't mind me saying so, let the child down easy. She's young, impressionable, and highly strung.
Tell me about it. I've played lutets that weren't strung as tight.
Just be careful.
It's not easy being me, Ruby.
Right, Prince of Realm, a killer job. Whoever wanted.
Speaking of killer jobs, I may have to kill my uncle.
May have to kill your uncle?
You must promise not to breathe a word of this to another soul.
My lips are sealed.
You promise?
If I'm lying, I'm dying.
It's not a sure thing yet.
Killing your uncle?
I have to be sure he actually murdered my father.
You really think your uncle murdered your father?
I'm not 100% positive.
Of course not.
But I have it from a very reliable source.
A reliable source. And just who might that reliable source be?
My father.
Your father, yes. Oh, King Cuckold. Unless I read the wrong paper, your daddy is dead.
To be precise, it was my father's ghost who told me.
Your father's ghost talked to you?
That's right.
Are you sure it wasn't just some of your college buddies punking you?
That is in the realm of possibility.
So there's a chance you won't kill your uncle.
Right now it's about 50-50.
50-50.
I wouldn't want to rush into it.
Of course not, you're Hamlet.
I mean, what if he didn't murder my father?
Right, what if?
Then I'd be killing him for nothing.
And you wouldn't want to kill your uncle based on bad intelligence.
But what if he did kill my father?
That's a whole other kettle of ifs.
And then there's the matter of justice.
Oh yeah, justice. Can't forget justice.
Ruby, do I have a right to take his life because he took my father's life?
I just do hair. Revenge killing ain't part of the job description.
On the other hand,
Here we go.
I mean, I am obligated to revenge my father's death if he was indeed murdered.
But conscience does make cowards, all of us.
Wow, I never thought of that. Conscience, right? Conscience does make cowards of us all. Yes, I could blame the whole thing on my conscience. Then I wouldn't have to do anything.
It's a thought.
I ask you, Ruby, does any man have the right to take another man's life under any circumstances?
Ruby starts to reply, but Hamlet continues.
But he is the king, and if I don't render justice, who will?
Ruby takes out her cell phone and dials.
But if that king attained his crown by raising his sword against his king.
Into the phone.
Your Highness, Ruby here.
But to raise a sword against your own king is the highest crime one can commit.
You know, that matter with your stepson, you asked me to call if I heard anything.
I mean, can two wrongs ever make a right?
If I were you, I wouldn't worry about a thing.
Does a right and wrong make a right?
Trust me, you have as much chance of being whacked by your stepson and I do becoming the queen of freaking England.
Can two rights make a wrong?
No problem, King.
To be or not to be, that is the question.
What's that? Oh yeah, wouldn't miss it.
Whether it's nobler to suffer the silings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Hamlet stands up and wanders off wearing the smock.
Or rise up against a sea of bubbles, a sea of puddles, a sea of doubles, a sea of cuddles.
Into the phone.
Save me a seat.
Ruby clicks off her phone.
Who's next?
The ghost enters.
Looks
Hamlet.
like I'm next.
King Hamlet.
You are not surprised to see me, Ruby.
Around here, nothing surprises me.
The sight of a dead man walking has a tendency to frighten most people.
Well, I ain't most people.
No, you're not, Ruby. You are the last honest person in Denmark.
Which ain't saying much when you get right down to it.
What am I going to do, Ruby?
We could trim the front, layer the back a little, disguise the bald spot.
I'm talking about my family. My brother murdered me. My wife took him into her bed before my body was even cold. My son won't avenge my death.
What family doesn't have problems?
You think Gertrude and Claudius had something going on before he poured the poison in my ear?
I wouldn't know, Your Majesty.
And if you did, you wouldn't tell me, would you?
What's said as rubies?
Stays at Ruby's. I know. I could have used ministers like you, Ruby. People who know how to keep their mouth shut, unlike my son.
Hamlet is young, Highness.
He's 32 years old, Ruby. When I was 32, I conquered half a dozen neighboring tribes, imprisoned 2,000 warriors, killed God knows how many more, and impregnated 500 of their women.
You were a doer, Majesty.
If my father's brother had killed my father and married my mother, I would have roasted the bastard over a spit. I would have fed his innards to the pigs. I would have...
Each generation has its own way of handling conflicts.
I would have had his head on a pike. I would have severed his limbs. And can you really disguise the bold spot?
Oh, sure, no problem.
Give it a shot.
He goes to work.
So how are things with you, Ruby?
Can't complain.
Still seeing that maker?
No, couldn't get him to tie the knot.
That's the trouble with young people today. No sense of commitment. Take my son for instance.
Also,
To
boot him
be or
first.
not to be? What's the problem? Just stab the son of fat bitch. What?
Son
Son
of a
of
bitch.
fat bitch. Did I ever tell you about the time I killed 3 men with one thrust of my sword?
Yes, Your Majesty, many times.
It was at the battle of of death is hell on the memory. Ruby. Well, anyway, they were all lined up in a nice neat row.
Having heard the story 100 times before, Ruby mouths the ghost's tale word for word as the lights fade. Curtain. Curtains the end. Great. Excellent. Thank you all. I know it's like Erica's son, right? Oh, child. I couldn't remember that.
My daughter.
Your daughter
That
was
was
a part.
great.
That was a part of the play. I like the end. Hello.
I didn't know you
Anyway.
heard that.
Oh, please, yes. Anyway, thank you all for reading, and thanks for bearing with the circumstances. Thank you to, let's see, to Mabel and Erica and Johanny and Madeline and Cesar and Inoshka, and then Cesar again as the ghost. So yeah, any like impressions that you all had from the play in general? Any comments that you want to make? And I'm gonna do a little bit of an overview, but any like initial comments, initial thoughts that you see things from Hamlet that remember from what we described Hamlet, etc.
I just love how everybody wants to Ruby, and Ruby knows every story about everything that's going on, and she just plays her part. And I just love her attitude and how blunt she is about everything. And like she kind of low disses you in a way, like how she talks to your highness, like, yeah,
Right.
you know, she gets back at her because she doesn't really know her name or acknowledges her really. So she kind of like slow disses her. So I like that.
Mhm. Yeah, that's definitely, it's interesting to think of that of Ruby as a character. So we'll talk about that in a moment. So what about other folks? Any other impressions or thoughts? Comments?
I do have something to say. So like Hamlet seemed as if he's not sure that he wants to kill his uncle or not, because he doesn't have proof that he killed his dad, but from his dad's conscience coming to him and like basically like speaking from the dead because he's a ghost, is telling him like, yeah, he did kill me. So now he's like stuck between, should I believe my dad? He's dead. Am I gonna believe his spirit? Like that kind of like it kind of threw me off a little bit, but I do know that it was Shakespeare, so it's expected.
Yeah, that's one of the things that directly Bruce King takes from the original play, right? The idea of Hamlet's indecision, like that he lives in this indecision, and the whole speech of to be and not to be. Remember last class we were talking about it. It is about like, should I do this? Should I do that? And if I do this, then this might happen. But if I do that, that might happen, right? If I kill myself, then I might go to sleep. But then if I go to sleep, what kind of dreams? What am I going to wake up? What's going to be on the other side? So therefore, he's almost in this place of immobility, like he can't move because he gets stuck in his thoughts, right? There's a phrase that this woman used to tell me. She was like, "Get out of your head," right? But Hamlet is totally in his head, right? And so he takes that as the character. He makes it even bigger. Like he can't decide what hairstyle he wants. He can't decide to whether to kill his uncle. He can't decide, the speech that he wants to make. He can't decide. Well, one thing he decides is that he doesn't want to marry Ophelia. That's one thing that he's clear about. But as we know in the play, later on, he decides, what? She killed herself. I loved her. So he does all that stuff. Cool. How about somebody else? Anybody else have an impression or something you want to share? So, okay, cool.
I do actually.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I believe it was Claudia, which was the mom, right? The mom.
Gertrude. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Gertrude, she didn't think that what she did was wrong. Like, you know, her husband dying and then marrying his brother.
Well, it's interesting because I think when you read the original play, Gertrude is almost like goes along with it, and you would think that, right? You would think like, wouldn't you think it's wrong? So in this play, and what he does, he gives her a reason why she goes along with it, and he says that she clearly doesn't think it's wrong because she forgets that he's even dead, right? Because he says your husband's dead. She goes, Claudius is alive. He's not dead. And Ruby says, I mean, your other husband, the one before. She goes, oh yeah, he's dead. But she was, he's dead and he's cold, right? And she goes, he was a cold man. And then she just talks about how this Claudius is satisfying her in ways, right? And Ruby says, there's a new glow to the royal cheeks, right? So it's a glow to her cheeks. So yes, it's interesting that in terms of like, we're talking about conscience, right? And where Hamlet is all caught up in his conscience, like how do you do the right thing? They're seeing some of the other characters around him don't have that sense of conscientiousness, right? They're not considerate. Like the king kills his brother to take the throne. The mother goes along with the whole situation, right? Poor Ophelia is young. She's very young, and so she, you see the contrast of her age with Ruby, because Ruby is giving her advice, like a womanly advice, like. She goes, like, for the life of me, she goes, oh, he's going to marry when he asks you. We're like, wait a minute. He hasn't asked you? She's like, not yet, not in so many words. And then Ruby says, oh, he'll say so many words, you won't even understand him, right? But she goes, I won't, I'll never understand why women let men get away with not saying they love them or something like that. So, so if we were looking at all of these characters, we could look at them, right? We could look at the character of Ophelia, right? And there's things about that she looks naive, right? That she is young, right? She's letting herself go by her emotions. We could see the queen, the way she portrays the queen here is very sexual, very dismissive, right? Of Ruby. She treats her like she doesn't matter. Like the queen does not have roots. She has transitions, right? She has this whole idea of who she is. The king, right? And the king's kind of like a dude, right? And he, 1 second, one split second. My phone was vibrating and I thought it was an important call. It was freaking Spectrum. I was like, I'm in the middle of my class. I can't talk to you now. So we're talking about the characters, right? So then we have the king, and then we bring in and he's he's like cheating on his wife already, and he's using all the powers of that. So he's not the most faithful, and he thinks, but he's afraid of Hamlet, that something's wrong with him. And then then we meet Hamlet, and he is in a state of confusion. And there's that whole crazy thing where he goes, the play is the ploy, and the ploy is the play, and the play is the play within a play, and the play within the play is called, and then he tells Ruby, don't repeat that to anybody. And she was like, I can't, even if I could, if I wanted to, right? But Hamlet's he's indecisive, he's in his head a lot. And then we have the ghost at the end, who's just he just wants revenge. He wants his son to revenge his life, and tells stories over and over again of all the conquests that he had. So so we've talked about the Shakespeare characters, right? But then there's Ruby, right? That is like not a character from Shakespeare. So I'm going to pause because Jahani has her hand up. Yeah.
What's with the phone call?
Oh, okay. So we're going to talk about the phone call. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Okay.
We'll talk about that next. We'll talk about that. We used to. So the character of Ruby.
Whenever you can, but it's
Okay.
fine. I have questions about it. I want to know.
So there, so the character Ruby is not from the play Shakespeare, but only is she not from the play Shakespeare, she's also not from that time period. If you notice, all of the characters are from that time period, which is like in the 1700s or 1600s, I think. And but Ruby is very today. Like she
It was
uses,
adapted to today's time.
yes, she even, her language is that way. Like she says, what happens at Ruby stays at Ruby's. What is that?
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Right. That's like the tagline, right, for Vegas.
Mhm.
She says to him, I would get, she says to Ophelia, I think I would suggest that Hamlet get help. I mean, the I see dead people. What is that? Right. But you know, what is
The
that phrase
movie,
from
the
the movie?
movie,
The Sixth
Sixth
Sense. Right.
Sense.
Right. Right. So Ruby's always making all these comments, you know, that are contemporary comments and probably making cultural references that belong to the modern day. Yet this play is supposed to be set back in the 1600s, right? So let's go use that to talk about the phone, right? So the phone, what's your question?
Because it kind of left me intrigued. He gave her the card,
Mhm.
call me if you hear anything, but then she calls him and then it's like to allow him to get himself killed. That was my
Well,
sense in it.
all right, yeah. Well, I think, well, she's playing with the idea. At that moment, she doesn't, you don't really know. I mean, Hamlet is so confused. He's like, he's gonna kill him. It's like 50-50, but he can't decide what bangs he wants. He can't do this. So she tells him, I don't think you have anything to worry about. I think he's so indecisive that he's not gonna go ahead and do it. Um, and actually, you know, what happens is in a fit of rage that he does it at the end, you know, in the actual play. In this play, this version, who knows what will happen. But if the idea of the phone is it's another thing. So there's this term, right, called anachronism, right? And I'm gonna do I'm gonna show you that. So anachronism is a device that they use. It's a literary device. And that's when things are out of place in time, right? When things are like, you know, so the idea for there to be a cell phone in that time, for him to be handing her a business card, when she says, do you know anything about the king? And she says something like, oh, I would do a background check. I will Google him, you know.
Yeah,
you
even
know.
the idea of a salon, I don't think they had salons
Right,
at
even
that time.
right. So the idea of a salon, the idea of Ruby as a character, she's anachronistic. Right. So those are two things. So I think so let's just take a quick look at this little um, PowerPoint that I have, just kind of summarizes this a little bit. Where is it at? Is it here? It's here in front. Yeah. So let's just look at this as a little quick summary. Okay. So we have the play. So this is Bruce Kane. He's a producer and a writer, and he's known for a bunch of plays, but he's known for this collection of short plays, and Ruby of Elsinore is one of them. So here, he lifts characters from Shakespeare's Hamlet, has them visit a fictional hair salon in Elsinore. Kane creates the character of Ruby, the hair salon owner, who is not a character in Shakespeare's Hamlet, and the characters enter and exit one by one and have conversations with Ruby that connect to the plot points of Hamlet. The writer uses humor and the literary device called anachronism to create the short play. And so anachronism is from the Greek word ana, which means backwards, and chrono, which chrono means time. So the kind of Merriam-Webster definition is an error in chronology, especially the chronological misplacing of persons, events, objects, or customs in regard to each other, and found several anachronisms in the movie, like in the movie. Oops. A person or thing that is chronologically out of place. It can be a person, right? As we talk with Ruby, and or state or condition of being chronologically out of place, where things don't match up and don't connect. Let me just check the chat. Okay. Okay, thanks. So let's see. So in the play, I said that Ruby is an anachronism. Let me stop sharing for a second and see how I could do this. Whoops. All right, here. So we said Ruby is an anachronism, right? we said there as a character, right? We said there were phrases, right? Like, um, and then there's also objects, you know, like the phone, and
Business card. Business card.
right, and there's she does there's also gestures, like when she imitates Elvis.
Elvis and the Google background check.
Right. And right, so those are a bunch of things that are in it, examples of anachronisms that are in the play. And stop share. Okay. So you just want to do that little bit of a summary. So that's an interesting like aspect of it. So if any of you are interested and want to do an extra credit just to work on it, that I uploaded it in Blackboard, and I just want to show you. And then I will talk about one last thing. Screen share. I don't know why I came out of it. And let's go to this. This is our class. If you just go to discussions, it's here. So if any of you are interested in doing it, you could do it by Sunday, December 12th, I said instead.
Oh, I didn't see. Oh, I didn't see that. I'm now seeing.
Okay. So this is just the extra credit. So if anybody wants to do it, you have to finish all your other assignments, and then extra credit gets applied to your grade at the end when I'm grading. But if any of you want to do it, just you can pick one of these questions. You can answer one of them and write an essay using one of the questions, and I'll read them. So one is in Bruce Cain's Ruby of Elsinore, the writer uses language to show characterization. Select at least 3 different characters and explain and demonstrate how Cain achieves characterization through their language. And characterization is like, how do we know about them? How do we know that Ophelia is naive? How do we know that the queen is basically horny and dismissive? How do we know that Hamlet is indecisive? So how do we know that these character traits, how does he use language to show that? The second question is, in the play Ruby of Elsinore, has characters and events based on Shakespeare's Hamlet, which is set in the late Middle Ages, which is the 14th or 15th century, between 1300 and 1499, in and around mostly the royal palace in Elsinore in the city of Denmark. So although Ruby of Elsinore is set in the same time period as Hamlet, the author plays with time by including phrases, ideas, and other items that are from the modern world known as anachronisms. Identify and explain at least, I should say at least 3 anachronisms in Ruby of Elsinore. I'll have to fix that. This one here, Ruby of Elsinore, is a play by Bruce Cain that is based on Shakespeare's classic play Hamlet. He uses characters from Hamlet in this play, including Queen Gertrude, Prince Hamlet's mother. Identify and explain at least 3 characters' traits that the playwright attributes to the character of Gertrude in play. This is focusing on one character. And then the last one is in Ruby of Elsinore, the playwright Bruce Cain uses humor to create the tone for the play that is based on Shakespeare's tragic play Hamlet. Discuss the use of humor in the play and identify and explain at least 3 examples of humor in Ruby of Elsinore. So if any of you want to take a stab at it, I'll take a look at it, but now my doorbell's ringing. Hold on one second, I'm sorry.
How is everyone doing with their finals? Stress? I thought it was only me.
I do not like writing papers at all.
Even the biology class, and it's a lot. It's a lot of reading.
Who you take bio with? Johnny?
Rosa,
Oh,
he's good. It's not hard, but it's just a lot of reading.
yeah,
don't
you have to
finish
like
one.
memorize a lot.
Yeah, you don't finish
It's a
one, and
lot.
it's like 3 other chapters coming in at once.
Biology is a lot because of the lab.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
homework.
Lecture is not even that hard.
Yeah, I have 5 exams from now to the 21st of
Ooh.
December.
Ay, ay, ay.
Doorbells ringing, the kids are demanding. Anyway, this is like remote learning, remote teaching. But let's see, there's a thing. Stress girl, okay. But yes, so if any of you would like to take a stab at it and work on it, let me know, and then we could even talk a little bit about it after class next week. It's basically for you to practice. We're going to do a specific practice as well next week for the final exam. But the final exam, and I'll let you go in a moment, and I'll hang out for if people have questions. But the final exam will be that. So the way that was set up, that you see that, answer this question and an essay, and then there's going to be a question, right? That will be how it's set up. That the final exam will be that way. So we're going to study the poems, and then on the 15th at midnight, you go to Blackboard, and then you're going to see the actual the question and the prompt. And so, but next week we'll talk about, I'll walk through a little slowly on how to, I think we did it a little bit early in the semester, but how to look at a prompt, basic things, make sure you understand the vocabulary of it, what it's asking of you. If it's saying at least 3, that means you could do at least 3. You can do, if you do 2, you're not answering it completely. If you do 4, it's okay, because it said at least 3. That means that the minimum is 3. Or they're saying 3 ideas or this, that. If it's something like that, if it's asking you to I don't know the question, I haven't seen the question. If it's asking you for themes, if it's asking you for a summary, that you're clear on what those things are. You're clear that what the themes are. If it's asking about poetic elements, that we're clear on that too. So, but we'll have all next week to work on reading the poems and preparing for the final exam. Okay.
Professor, you said you was going to point where are the poems?
Oh, did I put them up yet, or have not?
I haven't seen.
Okay, so then I have to put them up then. I haven't put them. Did I mention what they were or no? Oh, okay. It's like,
Yeah.
1 second. So they are 2 poems. Let me go to the download. They're not coming up. So I will put them up. So you go to Blackboard, you go to course content and look there, and I'll put them up there. That way you can read them. I'll put them up tonight before at the end of the night, but I'll put them up there. So that way, and that'll be your only homework would be to read the poems for next week. Okay, so that you can read them.
Surely appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. All right, then thank you all for the readers tonight. Give them a round of applause. And for the background readers, and then we'll see you. I know Mabel had a whole thing was going on in her background. We heard our whole community having a conversation. But anyway, I really appreciate all of your time and all of you putting your energy. And thank you, Cesar, too, because Cesar sent me a note saying that, that he wasn't feeling well, but I'm glad you participated. So thank you all. Have a good night and a good weekend. And I will see everybody on Monday. Okay. All right. Take care.
Okay, Professor.
Thank you.
Have a good
Good night.
weekend. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
Professor.
Stay
Good night,
safe,
everyone.
people. Stay safe.
Yes.
Professor.
Yes.
So
Rosa.
I wanted to ask, we don't have any assignment due on Sunday, right?
No, you don't have anything due Sunday.
Because I saw on the packet that's dramas.
Yeah,
assignment, so I was
we changed that. We took it out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So just read the poems when I post them, and I'll send the note to everybody.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right. Take care. Oh.